Two people, same salary, same savings, same city. One buys a house. One buys nothing you can touch or drive past or show your parents. 20 years later, one of them has a paid-off property worth nearly $500,000. The other one has a portfolio that grew while they slept. And when you actually run the full numbers, not the napkin version, the real version, one of them is quietly ahead by a number that will genuinely make your jaw drop. And it is probably not the one you think. Here is the thing nobody says out loud. Almost every single person who has ever bought a home was told they were making the smartest financial decision of their life. And almost every person who chose to invest instead was told they were throwing money away on rent. Both groups cannot be right. And yet both groups will defend their choice until the day they die, because the story they were sold felt completely true when they heard it. My name is Jason, and I spend way too much time thinking about the house versus investing debate and why two people who start with identical money end up in completely different financial realities even when they make equally reasonable choices. If you have ever stood at that fork in the road and genuinely did not know which path made more mathematical sense, subscribe and hit that like button because this video is the honest answer nobody gave you. Most people think this is a simple comparison. House goes up in value. You build equity, you own something real. Investing is risky. The market crashes. At least a house cannot go to zero. That is the story. It is repeated at family dinners, in bank offices, by every real estate agent who has ever handed someone a pen. And the investing side has its own version. The market returns 10% a year on average. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Renting is not throwing money away. Both sides have a clean, confident answer. Both answers are incomplete. Not wrong exactly. Incomplete. Like someone describing a car by only telling you the color. Here is the part almost nobody talks about. The real question is not which asset class wins in theory. The real question is what each choice actually costs you in dollars, in hours, in stress, and in risk over 20 years of real life. And once you actually map that out, the full picture, not the highlight reel, this debate stops feeling like a coin flip and starts feeling like a very specific math problem with a very specific answer for your specific situation. Think of it like two recipes that both promise the same dish. One takes 40 minutes of active cooking. The other takes 4 hours of slow prep. They both arrive at dinner looking identical on the plate, but the experience of making them is nothing alike. That is what we are actually comparing here. Here is where the data gets real. The average American home appreciated at about 3 to 4% per year over the last 20 years. That sounds solid, but here is the number that changes everything. The S&P 500 returned an average of roughly 10% per year over the same period. That is not 10% in a good year. That is the long-run average across crashes, recessions, pandemics, and everything else the last 2 decades threw at it. 3 to 4% versus 10%. Same time period. Completely different compounding curves. Here is what that gap means in actual dollars. A house bought for $250,000 in 2004 at 4% annual appreciation is worth roughly $540,000 today. That feels incredible. That is real wealth. But that same $250,000 dropped into a total market index fund at 10% average annual return would be worth approximately $1,600,000. Same starting amount. Same 20 years. One is $500,000. One is $1.6 million. That gap is over $1 million. And we have not even started talking about costs yet. Here is the part that should break your brain. Most homeowners do not think of their house as having ongoing costs that eat into that appreciation. They see the number go from $250,000 to $540,000 and feel like they made $300,000. But they did not make $300,000. They made $300,000 minus property taxes, roughly $60,000 over 20 years at $3,000 per year. Minus homeowners insurance, roughly $24,000 over 20 years. Minus maintenance and repairs. The industry standard is 1 to 2% of home value per year, so roughly $50,000 minimum over 2 decades. Minus mortgage interest. On a $200,000 loan at 6% over 30 years, You pay approximately $230,000 in interest alone. Add those up. That is roughly $364,000 in costs on top of your mortgage principal, against $300,000 in appreciation gains. The math is not what the brochure showed you. Now here is the honest counter. Homeowners are not just investing. They are also housing themselves. Every month you live in that house, you're not paying rent. And that is real value. If rent in your area is $2,000 a month, over 20 years, that is $480,000 you did not pay someone else. That changes everything. Once you factor in the rent you saved, homeownership starts making a lot more sense as a financial decision. It is not a pure investment. It is an investment plus a living expense in one product. And that combination has genuine power. But that was only half the story. Now let me introduce you to two people who made this exact decision. Her name is Sarah. She is 31 years old. She is a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm in Austin, Texas. She makes $68,400 a year. After taxes and benefits, she takes home about $4,300 a month. Sarah has saved $48,000 over 6 years. She is disciplined. She has a credit score of 740. She's been watching home prices in her neighborhood and feels like if she does not buy now, she will be locked out forever. She finds a 3-bedroom house listed at $290,000. She puts down $58,000, 20%, to avoid private mortgage insurance. Her 30-year mortgage at 6.8% gives her a monthly payment of $1,520. Property taxes in her county run about $320 a month. Homeowners insurance is $110. She budgets $150 a month for maintenance. Her total housing cost is $2,100 a month. She has $2,200 left after housing. She saves $300 a month, pays her car, eats, lives her life. She is not struggling, but her $48,000 is now a down payment. It is locked in walls and a roof. She cannot touch it without selling the house or taking out a loan against it. Now meet Daniel. Same age, same city, same salary, $68,400. Same $48,000 saved. But Daniel rents a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,400 a month. He takes that same $48,000 and puts it into a low-cost index fund. He also redirects the difference between what Sarah pays in total housing costs and what he pays in rent, roughly $700 a month, into the same fund. He contributes $700 a month on top of the initial $48,000. He does not think about it. He does not manage tenants. He does not replace water heaters on a Saturday morning. Here is what that actually feels like for both of them. For Sarah, it does not feel like a burden. It feels like progress. It feels like she drove past her house on the way to work and thought, I own that. It feels like her parents stopped asking when she was going to settle down. It feels like adulthood arrived. For Daniel, it feels like nothing. A number on a screen that goes up slowly. No key in his pocket. No story at Thanksgiving. Just a confirmation email once a month and a growing balance nobody asks about. And yet the math is about to do something that surprised even me when I ran it. Here is where I need you to stay with me. Because what comes next is where the numbers start doing something genuinely unexpected. Everything up to this point was about the surface comparison. House versus portfolio, equity versus balance. But what happens to each of those numbers over 20 full years, with real costs, real contributions, and real compounding factored in, is specifically designed to demolish whatever assumption you walked in here with. Do not skip this part. Psychologists call it the tangibility bias. And in the financial world, it has quietly steered more wealth-building decisions than any market crash or housing crisis in history. Here is how it works in daily life. It starts with a completely reasonable instinct. You can see a house. You can walk through it. You can touch the walls. That feeling of reality, that solidity, gets translated in your brain into safety. Then you see a stock portfolio, and it is just numbers. Numbers go up and down. Numbers feel fake. Then someone you trust, a parent, a coworker, a friend who just bought, tells you real estate never loses. And before you realize what happened, you have made a multi-$100,000 decision based on which option felt more real in your hand. not which one ran the better math. Here is the part that most people completely miss. The house feeling real is not an accident. The entire real estate industry, agents, banks, mortgage brokers, home improvement companies, is financially motivated every time you buy. The stock market has no salesperson handing you a pen. Nobody earns a commission when you open a brokerage account. The very reason real estate feels more legitimate is partly because an enormous industry spent decades making it feel that way. You are not irrational for feeling it. The feeling was engineered. Here is the number that changes everything. Let us say Sarah and Daniel both stick to their decisions for 20 years. Sarah's house appreciates at 3.5% annually. After 20 years, her home is worth approximately $578,000. Her remaining mortgage balance is around $140,000. Her equity is roughly $438,000. Against that, subtract total interest paid, roughly $150,000, property taxes, $64,000, insurance, $26,000, maintenance and repairs, $70,000 minimum. Net real wealth created from the home after costs, approximately $128,000 above what she put in. Daniel's portfolio, $48,000 initial investment plus $700 a month for 20 years at 9% average annual return. Slightly conservative to be fair. His portfolio is worth approximately $680,000. Total money he contributed was $48,000 plus $168,000 in monthly contributions, $216,000 total. The portfolio created $464,000 in growth on top of that. Net wealth above contributions, $464,000. On one side, you have Sarah with real, tangible equity in a paid-down home, roughly $438,000 in equity, but only about $128,000 above her actual costs. On the other side, you have Daniel with $680,000 in a liquid portfolio he never lost sleep over, $216,000 contributed, for $164,000 grown by math alone. Same income, same starting savings, same city. 20 years later, the gap in actual wealth created, not equity, actual wealth above what they put in, is roughly $336,000. In Daniel's favor, that is not a small number. That is a life. Here is the thing that separates people who quietly build wealth from people who make all the right visible moves and still end up behind. It is not income. It is not financial intelligence. It is not even discipline. It is this: they ran the full numbers, not the headline numbers, not the down payment and the appreciation. The full numbers, the interest, the taxes, the repairs, the vacancies, the opportunity cost of the locked-up capital. Every single dollar in and every single dollar out. The house versus investing debate is not really about which asset is better. It is about which decision matches your actual life, your income, your risk tolerance, your time, your city, your flexibility needs. And that distinction changes everything. Because in a high appreciation market, homeownership with leverage is genuinely powerful. In a flat or slow market, it ties up capital that compounds faster elsewhere. There is no universal winner. There is only the answer that is true for your specific numbers. You're not bad with money for not knowing this. The system is designed to push you toward the option with the most salespeople behind it and the most social proof around it. And now that you understand why the comparison actually works, you can make a decision based on reality instead of the story you were sold. The first move is to run your own rent versus own calculator before making any decision. Not a bank's calculator. They're designed to make buying look better. Use the New York Times Rent Versus by calculator online. It factors an opportunity cost, which almost no other tool does. Because opportunity cost is the invisible number that changes everything. The second move is to stop treating home equity as liquid savings. It is not. It is locked capital. If you buy, make sure you have a separate emergency fund and a separate investment account. Your home is a place to live first and an investment second. The moment you reverse that, the math starts working against you. The third move is to increase your investment contributions anytime your housing cost goes down. When your mortgage is paid off, Redirect that payment immediately into your portfolio. When you refinance and lower your payment, invest the difference the same month. That single habit is how homeowners build stock market wealth at the same time. The fourth move is to be honest about the hidden costs before you buy. Budget 1.5% of the home's value per year for maintenance. Budget your property taxes. Budget your insurance. Add it all up and compare it to what you would pay in rent for the same lifestyle. That honest comparison, not the emotional one, is the only comparison that matters. The fifth move is to stop waiting for the perfect answer and start running your specific numbers. The right choice between buying and investing depends entirely on your city's price-to-rent ratio, your timeline, your job stability, and your appetite for illiquidity. Nobody online can tell you the answer to that. You can only find it by doing the math with your actual numbers. None of these moves require higher income. None of them require perfect timing. They require honesty about what things actually cost and a willingness to run numbers that might challenge what you already believe. That is it. Here is the truth. The wealth gap in this country is not primarily caused by people making the wrong choice between houses and stocks. It is caused by people making enormous financial decisions based on what felt true instead of what ran true on a spreadsheet. Both assets can build real wealth. Both can destroy it if entered blindly. The next time someone at dinner tells you real estate always wins or the stock market is the only real path, you will know exactly what question to ask. Did you include everything? The interest, the taxes, the repairs, the opportunity cost of the capital, the hours, the risk? Because the answer that includes everything is the only answer that is real. A house is not a plan. A portfolio is not a plan. Understanding what your specific numbers actually do over 20 years, that is the plan. If this video helped you see the house versus investing question differently, drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Are you currently renting and investing, or did you buy? And looking back, do you think you made the right call for your numbers? Drop it below. I read every single one. My name is Jason. This channel is for people who want to understand how money actually works, not the version they sell you, the real version. Subscribe if that sounds like something you want more of. I will see you in the next one.